With its shift towards action-based gameplay, Final Fantasy XVI features an intriguing combat system. It comes from the mind of Ryota Suzuki, who spent the past 2 decades working at Capcom on franchises such as Monster Hunter, Devil May Cry, and Dragon's Dogma, and as such, there are quite a few intricacies. On a foundational level, Clive has access to numerous abilities. These are associated with him and can be used at any given time as long as they've been learned. They are then enhanced and complemented by iconic abilities. As Clive progresses through the narrative, different iconic abilities will be unlocked. Each will allow the player to change the way Clive performs within combat scenarios, and it means there's plenty of room for variation. Within this video, we're going to focus on iconic abilities associated with the Phoenix, and throughout, you will find a detailed breakdown of each individual ability, with focus being placed around underlying mechanics, upgrade paths, and of course, combat application. So let's dive into our Final Fantasy XVI Phoenix gameplay guide. Having received the blessing of the Phoenix from Joshua, Clive is granted access to core Phoenix abilities from the beginning of the game. During the game's combat tutorial, which will see Clive square off against Lord Commander Rodney Murdoch, you'll be given basic training on how to use Phoenix Shift and Rising Flames. But what's not shown, at least in the immediate sense, is that Clive will have access to a few more Phoenix-related abilities, and they each have their own clear strengths and weaknesses. The focal point of the Phoenix, though, is Phoenix Shift. This is accessible to the player whenever they have the Phoenix icon ability set selected, and it can be used by pressing the circle button. When Phoenix Shift is applied, an instant teleportation dash will be initiated, closing the distance between Clive and the selected target. By default, no damage-dealing action is associated with the Phoenix Shift, but once the shift is concluded, the player can chain it with either a physical or magical attack. In the case of the former, a physical-based Phoenix Shift will perform a similar function to Lunge, a move that's part of Clive's basic toolkit. Where it differs, however, is that Phoenix Shift works on all enemy types, including those who are flying, and it can also deal more base damage. If an enemy is grounded, there's also the chance to perform a punishing blow when performing a physical-based Phoenix Shift. When using a magic-based action at the end of a Phoenix Shift, Clive will instead perform a fire-based magic burst, something that will deal more damage and knock most smaller enemies over. This, in turn, makes them susceptible to being punished. One basic combination that works well with Phoenix Shift is a magic-enhanced lunge. Due to this action also creating a magic burst, Clive can then pounce on the downed enemy with a physical-based Phoenix Shift to perform a significant amount of damage. When fighting against large groups of smaller enemies, this combination can also create space and reduce the chance of being hit by multiple attackers. Rising Flames is the bread and butter premium ability associated with the Phoenix. It is one of the 2 selectable abilities equipped to Clive by default, and as mentioned, it's first introduced to players during the combat tutorial. In its vanilla form, Rising Flames is a single one-hit high-impact move. When used, it will deal approximately 60% more damage than Clive's full physical and magic burst combination chain, and it can also reduce the stagger bar of bigger enemies and bosses. The other benefit is that when using Rising Flames on smaller enemies, they are launched or have their guard broken. Rising Flames can be upgraded to enhance its application. And after being upgraded, Rising Flames becomes a multi-hit move. It will still deliver that impactful single upfront damage boost, but as the flames rise, additional chip damage will be delivered. This translates to approximately 20% extra damage, something that is boosted further if Rising Flames is used on staggered enemies. Due to its quick cooldown timer and decent damage, Rising Flames can serve as a solid addition to any playstyle. That it's one of Clive's initial abilities also does not diminish its utility. As Clive grows stronger, so too will Rising Flames. This means, even against stronger enemies, it will still deliver solid damage without them being staggered. The only caveat is that due to Clive needing to be in front of the target, it will require a bit of finesse against enemies who have high mobility. Still, when Rising Flames is used in a careful manner, it can hit multiple targets at the same time, further increasing its utility. Alongside Rising Flames, at the start of the game, Clive also has access to Scarlet Cyclone. Whereas Rising Flames is designed to attack a single target with high burst damage and launching them into the air to initiate a combination attack, Scarlet Cyclone is more designed as a multi-hit crowd clearer. Its damage output is therefore underwhelming against a single target, dealing approximately 34% less damage compared to Rising Flames. However, due to its ability to attack multiple targets around Clive, it can be an effective way of clearing out weaker enemies with minimal fuss. The other benefit is that weaker enemies will be knocked over, making them susceptible to being punished by a quick Phoenix Shift follow-up. This utility can make Scarlet Cyclone very useful when dealing with large crowds, but it also has a unique function. Upon Clive taking damage, its potential will increase, allowing the ability to deal approximately 10% more damage. But there's also an added benefit, as when the ability is used under these circumstances, the cooldown timer for Scarlet Cyclone is also reduced. After being upgraded, similar to Rising Flames, Scarlet Cyclone will land more hits. This allows the ability to deal approximately 20% more damage compared to the standard version. One of the more intriguing abilities associated with the Phoenix is Heat Wave. Unlike Rising Flames and Scarlet Cyclone, this is not unlocked by default at the start of the game. Instead, the third Phoenix ability can only be obtained after spending 120 ability points. Heatwave is designed as a counter-punching ability. This means that instead of being a proactive move, it's instead there to punish enemies who would dare to try and attack with projectiles. Now, it should be said that Heatwave can be used as a standalone ability for players who want to take the initiative. But that's not its strength, and when used as a counter, Heatwave will send out additional shockwaves. In its vanilla form, not only will this allow the ability to deliver around 350% more damage, but its cooldown will be decreased by 33%. The other huge benefit of Heatwave is that the shockwave pierces through enemies. If you're in an encounter where ranged attacks are being fired, using a Heatwave counter can be a quick and effective way to clear out a group as long as they're standing approximately in a straight line. There is also a more advanced application here too, as it's possible to have a subtle influence on the direction of the shockwave by using the left analog stick. After being upgraded, Heatwave will fire more projectiles when used as a counter. This will lead to around 40 to 50% more damage being dealt. Based on this, Heatwave is a recommended part of any playstyle that involves delivering swift counters. It can clear out waves of smaller enemies with relative ease, and it can deal considerable damage to larger enemies and bosses, melting their will gauges. The only downside is that its strength is dependent on fighting against enemies that use projectiles. The ultimate Phoenix ability is Flames of Rebirth. Unlike the other three moves, the acquisition of Flames of Rebirth can be quite costly, as to learn its most basic form requires 1,695 ability points. The default application of Flames of Rebirth is similar to Scarlet Cyclone, as it's an effective move for targeting multiple enemies at the same time. However, the enemies do not have to be in close proximity to Clive, with the area of effect now much, much greater. Its damage output is almost 50% more than that of Scarlet Cyclone, but given the long recast time, it's not that impressive when looking at its output as a pure damage dealing ability. That's because the main use for Flames of Rebirth is its ability to restore Clive's HP. Whenever Clive takes damage, it's possible for him to regain a specific amount. One way would be to use Torgal's heal command, but Flames of Rebirth can be used to restore this regain chunk instantly. After being upgraded, Flames of Rebirth gains a second phase. But even though the animation is impressive, the damage output of the ability does not increase to reflect this. Instead, the initial phase does less damage, with more emphasis being placed on the second phase. This makes Flames of Rebirth an interesting situational ability. When squaring off against a tough enemy, it can be used as a quick way of restoring health without needing to use potions, and against smaller groups of enemies, it can be a quick way of clearing a crowd. Its perhaps unorthodox third application comes when an enemy is staggered. Due to Flames of Rebirth landing so many hits, especially after being upgraded, it can increase the combo meter in quite an effective manner. However, this is very much a tertiary application. In terms of potential synergy, in the earlier game, Phoenix works quite well in tandem with Garuda. After launching an enemy into the air using any of the available means, Clive can use Phoenix Shift to close the distance. At the beginning, the most effective way of launching and dealing damage would be Rising Flames. From here, there are numerous options, but one of them is to use Wicked Wheel to launch the enemy further into the air and continue the combination. Once more icons are unlocked and abilities start to become mastered, Phoenix becomes a bit more situational. However, it continues to be very effective when squaring off against multiple enemies, as Clive can shift to enemies that have been downed to deliver punishing blows. But with that, we've come to the end of our Phoenix gameplay guide. Hopefully you found the breakdown of the abilities and potential applications useful. If you did, then liking the video and sharing it around would be much appreciated. We would also be very interested to hear your thoughts about Phoenix. Are there any particular situations where you feel the abilities shine, and what synergies have you started to find out? Let us know in the comments below. If you haven't already, we'd also recommend subscribing to Final Fantasy Union. This is planned as the first of a suite of Final Fantasy XVI gameplay guides we're going to be producing, and we've also got a ton of other Final Fantasy XVI related content planned that we hope will enrich your playing and watching experience. Alright everyone, with that, this is Daryl signing out. As always, I'd like to give a big thank you to all of our Patreon and YouTube membership supporters, especially Benjamin Snow, The Livestream, Elsa Claire Farron, Galson Dikujata, Gregory, Justin Dent, and Zukan TDK, who are super special Onion Knight supporters. And of course, a big thank you to everyone for watching this video. I'll see you all again soon for more Final Fantasy goodness.